Good day, I'm Hallie Jackson, and we are coming on the air with breaking news. We are learning a deal to help end the war against Iran is set to be signed on Friday in Switzerland. This is just into us, according to the Prime Minister of Pakistan. Look at this. Just moments ago, posted a deal has been reached, a peace deal between the U.S. and Iran here, and that military operations will cease. And if you see it there, including in Lebanon, that's critical because this is where Israel and Hezbollah militants have been at war. The president, remember, is said to head to Europe not long from now to attend the G7 summit outside Geneva after, of course, watching that UFC fight happen on the White House South Lawn. Now, a source familiar with the deal in question tells NBC News that it's expected to extend the current ceasefire, reopen the Strait of Hormuz. That's critical. Remember, that's that key waterway that transmits a lot of the world's oil. And it'll also see Iran commit to giving up its nuclear program and material. A lot of questions on that piece of it. I want to start with our chief international correspondent, Keir Simmons, who is tracking this all. Keir, I know you've been working your sources here, joining us from Doha. Significant news here from the Pakistani Prime Minister, set to be signed on Friday. Walk us through some of the details.
That's right, Hallie, and we are just reading, all of us, that post by the Pakistani Prime Minister Sharif. And I'll just look down and take you through a little bit more of it, Hallie, because there is a lot that he has posted. He says, following intensive talks, we are pleased to announce that the peace deal between the United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran has been reached. And what he says crucially is both sides have declared the immediate and permanent termination of military operations on all fronts, including Lebanon. And then, as you mentioned, he goes on to say that there will be an official signing ceremony on Friday the 19th of June in Switzerland. Now, of course, that will be just after the G7. So who will be at that signing ceremony? Will President Trump be there? Will Vice President Vance be there? It doesn't appear that he answers that in this post, though he does go on to talk about his praise for Doha here, Qatar, which has been intensely involved in what really, honestly, Hallie, has been a very, very tense day today. It began with Israel saying that Hezbollah in Lebanon had fired drones into Israel. Then there was that Israeli strike in Beirut, Israel said, on Hezbollah in Beirut. 3 people were killed, according to the Lebanese. And then Prime Minister Netanyahu saying that he sanctioned that strike and that Israel would always strike back if it was targeted. And then a post from President Trump saying that that strike by Israel should not have happened. So putting distance between himself and the leader of Israel. Extraordinary events. And now there was a Qatari team in Iran. Now this announcement by Pakistan, which has been the lead mediator in all of this, that it says that the two sides have reached a deal. I will say one other thing, Hallie. It's midnight, just after midnight here in Tehran. In Tehran. I'm in Doha, where it's half an hour later, so it's 12:05 here. And I was told by one Iranian in Tehran, close to the government there, that they would not want to announce this on President Trump's birthday. And it looks like this announcement has been made minutes after President Trump's birthday was over.
Well, Keir, I want you to stand by for a second, because when you talk about President Trump, as you were speaking, Keir, he has posted online reaction to this, and I want to read what he says. I think we have it built. We can show it to people here. He says the deal is now complete. He goes on to say the opening of the Strait of Hormuz will happen, going on to add, ships of the world, start your engines, let the oil flow. Let me go to Gabe Gutierrez, who is joining us from Geneva, just ahead of the G7 there, our senior White House correspondent. I think it's important to note here, Gabe, obviously the Strait of Hormuz was a critical priority for the Trump administration in any kind of a peace deal in any of these negotiations. It is also not instantaneous, right? Does this mean that tomorrow morning, Monday morning, we snap our fingers and the ships pass through no problem?
Highly unlikely, Hallie. And look, this announcement by the president came less than 15 minutes or so since the Pakistani post. So a lot of the details here are still being worked out. But the president trying to frame it in his terms, saying that he fully authorizes the lifting of that naval blockade, certainly very key in this entire negotiation. And as Keir was just referencing, there was a lot of fast-moving developments today, Hallie, with the president visibly frustrated with the actions of Prime Minister Netanyahu and the attack on Lebanon. So we are asking White House officials for some clarity here. Does this mean that perhaps a top member of the administration, even the president himself, could attend this signing that the Pakistanis say is now on Friday? We don't quite know. Now, here in Geneva, actually across the border in France, we're expecting the president to travel here tomorrow. It's still just before midnight here, and the president is expected here for the G7 summit. There were some protests earlier tonight, thousands of protesters taking to the streets. This whole Iranian conflict, the Iran war, looming over this summit. But certainly some may breathe a sigh of relief now that some sort of tentative deal has been reached as we work to learn more about the details of all this. But certainly, Hallie, this is something that the president had been wanting for quite some time, even as he attends that UFC fight on the White House grounds later on this evening, East Coast time. Now the president will be coming here to France for this G7 summit, presumably with this deal done. Although, again, the particulars are still, we're still waiting on details of what this all means, Hallie.
We'll hold that thought for 1 second, Gabe. Let me go back to Keir Simmons now. And Keir, to Gabe's point, waiting on details, what are some of the biggest questions that you have, as I know you're working the phones with your sources?
Yeah, and you caught me looking down there, Ali, because what I'm looking for primarily right now is what Iran has to say. We haven't heard from Tehran at this stage. We did hear earlier today from the lead negotiator, Speaker Galabaf of the Iranian parliament, and he was indicating that the issues between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon would likely mean that these negotiations were not going to move as quickly as President Trump had hoped. Now that does appear to have shifted, according to the Pakistanis. And remember that the Pakistanis are close to Iran, are close to the Iranians. It's a fractious relationship, but they do have that strong link. And so do the Qataris here, despite the fact, of course, that Qatar itself was targeted during this war by Iran. There are still those diplomatic channels between the Qataris and the Iranians. So you've got to think that if this announcement has been made by Pakistan, and I suspect that may be one of the reasons why the Pakistani Prime Minister was the one who made the announcement rather than President Trump on social media, you've got to think that they believe that they have the Iranians on board. But again, I'm just looking down, trying to find, Hallie, the first reaction from Iran.
I'm going to let you keep looking at your phone for a second, Keir. And while you do, I'm going to go to our NBC News international correspondent, Matt Bradley, who is live for us in Tel Aviv, because obviously Israel, a critical part of this as well. Earlier today, Matt, there was some reporting that in a phone call with Axios, the President Trump, was extraordinarily, his words, pissed at the Israeli prime minister, obviously for some of the continued attacks on Lebanon against Hezbollah there that we have seen. Critically, as Keir has pointed out, this peace deal, the terms of this ceasefire apparently include a ceasefire in Lebanon as well. Any reaction yet from the Israelis to this, Matt? I know this is all breaking in just the last 15 minutes.
This is all totally breaking, Hallie, and you're right. There's no reaction that we've heard so far. I mean, the fact is that this is a huge about face from what, as you mentioned, that we saw just hours ago, when it looked as though this whole situation, all of these negotiations, everything leading up to this was about to be thrown under the bus for the sake of the fighting over where I am now, Israel's northern border with Lebanon. And this has been a recurring pattern where we've seen Hezbollah striking targets in northern Israel, Israel deciding to fire back, not just into southern Israel, which is a place where they have quite a few troops, huge deployments, where there's a full-on active war going on, but into the southern part of Beirut, or the southern suburbs of Beirut. That, and this is the second time that this almost happened, that we saw Iran firing at the Israelis. There was an alert that was put out by the IDF. There was actually a restriction on gatherings that was reduced to 5,000 people. Several major concerts here in Israel were actually canceled because of the threat that Iran was going to be attacking Israel with huge munitions. And a lot of the restaurants in this neighborhood were shut down. Instead, we didn't see any of that. And now we're colliding headlong into peace, into some sort of treaty that could actually end this conflict as opposed to undermining it and exacerbating it further. So really just a head-spinning series of events in just the past couple of hours here in the Middle East. And it really just goes to show that this fight, these negotiations, are anybody's game to win.
Matt Bradley, live for us there in Tel Aviv. Let me go back to Gabe Gutierrez, our man on the ground there overseas in Europe. And Gabe, the president we know was set to leave Europe on Wednesday, I believe. Is there a chance he might stay for this signing in Switzerland Friday, or is it simply too soon to say?
It is too soon to say, Hallie. I'm actually trying to text with some White House officials right now to try and figure that out. What I can tell you, though, is that there has been a delay in the president's schedule just this evening. As we mentioned earlier, he is still back in Washington at the White House planning to attend that UFC a highly anticipated series of fights on the South Lawn. We're just now learning, according to two sources, tell NBC News that the fights tonight have actually been delayed for about an hour due to weather. So now the pre-show is set to start at 8 p.m. It had been set to start at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And now the series of fights, we're told, will start around 9 p.m. In the evening. So that could potentially push back the president's departure. We're not quite sure as this all unfolds. What we had been told is that this event would take place rain or shine. But certain critics of the event and even some supporters of the event, but just were skeptical of the logistics of it, including Joe Rogan, and wondered about the issue of weather and whether this should be an event like this should happen on the South Lawn in the open air. Of course, the so-called Claw, that major structure, a makeshift arena that's been constructed on the South Lawn over the past several weeks, and that, according to court filings, is costing UFC and its affiliated groups some $60 million. That is unprecedented. And the size of this event, some 4,000 spectators expected there on the South Lawn, tens of thousands more expected in an overflow area on the ellipse. Well, again, we're just now learning that that event will be delayed by about an hour at least due to weather at this point. The president expected to leave here to Europe just after midnight, Hallie.
And Gabe, just to be clear, and you mentioned it, but I want to underscore that, a weather delay, the delay we understand, and I'm sitting here in Washington where we know that thunderstorm warning, I believe, is in effect, not having to do with Iran, right? We believe that the delay for the UFC fight is because of the storms?
Yes, that's right. Due to weather at this point. The president, of course, known for juggling many things at one time, and he's been conducting these negotiations throughout the day and also anticipating this highly anticipated event here on the South, or there on the South Lawn. And, of course, this is his 80th birthday, Hallie.
A birthday UFC fight split-screened with an Iran peace deal, Gabe. Quite a Sunday. We'll look for more of you coming up tonight on Nightly News. Appreciate you, along with Matt Bradley, Keir Simmons as well. Thank you all for watching. For now, that's it for this breaking news report, but we will have more coverage online at NBCNews.com and then, of course, later on Nightly. I'm Hallie Jackson. For all of us at NBC, appreciate you watching. We'll see you soon.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.